Meanwhile, let's focus on what is happening with Hyatt Regency. So Hyatt Regency is a five-star property which is close to the Mumbai airport, and yesterday they put out a statement saying that they're suspending operations temporarily because they've simply run out of funds. They don't have the money to keep operations up, and they will be going into suspension till further notice. Well, some of the employees of the hotel have moved an industrial court today and got a stay on their suspension and their firing, saying that the hotel has not paid them their salaries for the last 2 months. My colleague Priyanka Iyer is joining us with all the details.
We understand that there are 400 employees of Hyatt Regency, and of that 193 employees are part of the Bharatiya Kamgar Sena Workers Union. So these employees have moved the industrial court along with the Bharatiya Kamgar Sena because they feared suspension of employment after news came in that Hyatt Regency is temporarily suspending operations since funds are not coming in from the owner Asian Hotels West. Now we understand the court has granted them interim relief till 28th of June. Until then, their employment is protected, and on 28th of June, the next hearing will be held when Hyatt Regency is expected to file a response as well. Now, in our conversations with employees, we understand that they have not been paid dues in the last 2 months, and employees have also claimed that the occupancy levels in the hotel was at quite decent levels in the last few days, between 60 to 80%, and also because a lot of customers were quarantining at Hyatt Regency. Now, a clarification has come in on this matter from Asian Hotels West. They have informed the exchanges that the amount that they had defaulted to Yes Bank was the first time ever in history. Remember, Asian Hotels West had said that they defaulted 4.32 crores in payments to Yes Bank. And what now Asian Hotels is saying is that this was the first time because of the massive effect of COVID-19. And since then, Yes Bank holds all the hotel's daily collections in the escrow account. The company and the hotel are not allowed to make any payments, whether it is for government taxes or for on-roll employee salaries or for vendor payments, etc. And Yes Bank has made only some payments from that escrow account towards hotels' electricity, water and gas charges.
So is the Hyatt case a one-off or a symptom of a larger malaise for an industry that really seems to be shaken up for over 18 months now? To speak on this, I'm joined today by Mr. Pradeep Shetty of the Federation of Hotel and Restaurant Association of India. I'm joined by Ajay Awtaney of Live from a Lounge and Mythili Bhusnurmath, consulting editor, ET Now. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Shetty, let me come to you and ask you about what you see as a trend with the Hyatt case. I mean, we know that there may be other reasons for what has happened with Hyatt Regency, but do you think it's a symptom of what the hospitality sector is going through?
So Hyatt case is not the beginning. This has started sometime late last year. This is just one of the cases which has now been picked up, probably, or this being a chain which has put it on paper and just hit the media. But frankly speaking, after last year's lockdown itself, the stress was seen. So many budget segment hotels, 2-3 star level hotels, many, according to us, about 30% of them never opened up after the first lockdown. And second lockdown, before the second wave came in, there was a considerable amount of personal equity and working capital borrowings that happened to put the business back on track. And now we've again faced this kind of an issue. So the fact being that these kinds of constant interruptions, and even at the time when things were good, one of the gentlemen just mentioned about from November to March. So those were periods, but they were very, very small pockets of resort locations who did about 50-60% occupancy. And those were which were drivable distance from big cities. But largely the rest of the country continued to suffer with dismal occupancies. The restaurants did about 30-40% of pre-COVID levels. The environment does not exist whatsoever in view of these lockdown measures or the restrictions that are announced. There is no environment at all for this business to even to survive at all. So Hyatt case, again saying, is not the beginning. It's a continuous process. There are many of them who have shut doors. The second wave is going to be hitting, in fact, even badly than what the first wave did, because now there is virtually no avenue left to mop up any working capital or any equity at all. So this is going to be far more challenging. With the Hyatt case, I'm sure it has something to do with sustaining. See, large properties, there is a policy direction which we see, which is not to protect the large borrower. There is some kind of a policy direction which we've seen in many of the resolution frameworks also. And but what has been lost is that these large borrowers are exactly the places where there is a larger economic impact also. Like a Hyatt shutting down will lay off at least 800 to 1,000 people directly working over there. And besides all the other ancillary and attached industries to it. So the impact is huge. This is the beginning for the larger change. But even other chains also in other parts of the country have remained shut for 6 months and then reopened and intermittently been closed and off. This one, I'm glad the alarm bell. Economically, it is very disturbing, and we really hope that all parties, including the banks, look at the reality. They need to come out and help the sector. The sector will bounce back no sooner there is confidence, no sooner there is an environment of free travel, international tourism.
Mr. Shetty, if you can give me a sense of what has the hit been like? I mean, we're talking about a Hyatt, we're talking about a big chain of hotel, a large operation, but in your medium to smaller, segment of the hospitality sector, what has been the extent of hit? You mentioned that you believe 30% of those hotels never even opened up after the first wave. Do you think it will be a larger number because of the second wave?
What has happened is that many of these small hotels were extended support for the COVID isolation and quarantine initially. And each of the respective state governments took some of the hotels. So they managed to get some revenues, which were, of course, very, very poor in very small amounts. But thereafter, we've seen a constant trend of these hotels shutting down or being unable to work. We know of so many properties which are operating with, just 1 or 2 rooms over there. The owner somehow managing, to pay 2, 3, 4 staff. He's not able to call back his staff. In terms of numbers, it's very difficult to say. The metros are hit worst. Resort locations, the hit is less, although 100% is not back. I would say 90% of them are back in resort location. But in cities, second cities, 30 to 40% have not come back. And this second wave will add some further hotels to that list who will not be able to open or who will simply not have the wherewithal to start operations. In terms of, there's a larger issue of employment that is also coming. The first lockdown, we had a migration issue. Many of the workforce went back. With great difficulty, all of them were called back because you see a hospitality sector, it employs people from the cross section of the society. So it's not that if I'm an IT industry, I just need IT professional. I need people from a gardener to a utility boy, to an accountant, to a chef, to somebody in a bakery, to even a CEO who may be a Cornell graduate. So all of these people, to bring them back together and get them to work. And then again, constant disruptions, because even when we reopened, there were great restrictions. 50% capacity, hotels could give rooms only to repatriated passengers. So there were a lot of restrictions. Now, with this disruption, there is a serious concern of the workforce actually deserting this industry because of the uncertainty that lies. We have a record of about 90 million who are directly employed with this industry in tourism and hospitality. And that's a huge number. A restaurant, ordinarily, an average restaurant employs about 18 to 20. A hotel at an average is employing about more than 100 to 200. Large hotels are in thousands. So all these employment is another issue. When we do come back after the full vaccination and we want to go in full cry, we will be facing this real problem too. I think all of this together just says that this is a serious problem that we need to look at.
Ajay, give me a sense of whether this is going to be symptomatic, the Hyatt case is going to be symptomatic of others in the hospitality sector and how bad the hit may be. I mean, Hyatt Regency, all said and done, according to their employees who've gone to court today, had 60 to 70% occupancy. But they have apparently not paid salaries in the last 2 months. It's also an airport hotel. So, you know, on the face of it, should have been doing better.
Hi, Tamanna. Thanks for having me over again. Just to give you perspective, you mentioned Hyatt Regency is an airport hotel, and I think that's been the reason also that it is doing worse than other hotels at the moment. I've been traveling around the country a fair bit over the past 6 to 9 months after the first lockdown opened up, and my experience has been that resort properties are doing very well because people wanted to go for vacation. But city hotels have not been doing so well. So city hotels were only getting weekend traffic. And like you yourself mentioned, after March, this traffic started to drop off as the second wave took over. So with respect to the Hyatt Regency Mumbai case, I think the other problem is obviously the liquidity problem. The company that owns the hotel is not Hyatt. Hyatt is just managing the property. The owner of the property has been having liquidity issues. I'm sure Mythili can touch more upon that in the coming minutes. But they've been defaulting on their loans payments to Yes Bank also as of May 2021. So clearly, those guys are not making enough money to pay salaries and so on. Will others fall? I don't think this is a symptom of big hotels falling. As long as their books are in order, they're still making enough money by reducing room rates. I was in a hotel, I spent most of the past week in a hotel, and the room rates were abysmally low. A 4-star hotel at Mumbai airport was selling for 2,800 rupees a night. So you can imagine how dire straits are there. But they've been all meeting the obligations. So I think there's a specific case related to this particular hotel at this point of time. And I hope that's not going to be the case with the other hotels around the country.
You know, the question also remains, and let me come to Mythili on this, on why this situation is prevailing, and do you think it's fair to now ask whether all of the schemes that between the Reserve Bank of India and the Government of India have been introduced, especially for vulnerable sectors or contact intensive sectors, are they working? Are they reaching those who need help?
Well, Tamanna, my banking days are long behind me, so I can only hazard a guess. I would tend to agree with Ajay that yes, in the case of Hyatt, because it is an airport hotel, it is hit harder than the other hotels simply because it is almost linked to the air traffic. And when air traffic falls so dramatically, it's bound to kind of have its repercussions on all hotels which are located near the airport. That perhaps is one factor. Another factor, as Ajay says, we really do not know how long this particular hotel has been having liquidity problems. The fact is that hospitality was recognized as one of the 26 stress sectors by the Kamath Committee late last year, in September last year, when the committee gave its report. But the committee had suggested restructuring, but very stringent conditions were laid down. And though over a period of time, these conditions have been relaxed, it's only in May this year the government under the ECGLS scheme 3.0 specifically came out for the hospitality sector. But one must also remember that even though banks have been told they can restructure and government is going to give them a guarantee, etc., within, of course, certain parameters and guidelines, the fact is one really cannot expect banks to throw good money after bad. So restructuring is essentially a hand-holding operation. If you're not going to see any light at the end of the tunnel, you really do not know when mobility, when travel, etc. is going to be restored, when the sector is going to come back to health. How long will the banks be willing to take on that risk is a big question mark. So naturally, banks are, little wary, little hesitant to extend loans to a sector which is going to suffer for maybe much longer than other sectors of the economy as compared to manufacturing sectors, the FMCG sector. So I think this is why it's a little early in the day. As I said, it's only in May that the ECGLS scheme was specifically extended to the hospitality sector. And it's only recently in the latest monetary policy announcement that the governor has talked in terms of special liquidity arrangements being made. So perhaps it's a little early in the day, but there's no doubt that this sector is feeling the pain much, much more than many other sectors. And bankers will be wary of lending to a sector which is not going to come out of these problems easily.
No, the question is, because you missed the previous response from Mythili, I'm just catching you up to speed. The point that she was making was that you can't blame banks also who are averse to lending credit to a sector where there is no clarity on how the recovery will go forward. Do you as a sector have any clarity on how recovery will take place? Then why should banks bet on you? That's the other point of view.
So that is exactly, we are constantly engaging with the government, that we understand that as a lender they may have serious doubts, and that doubt is reflective of the way the banks have behaved in the last 1 year. So our sector has been put on a negative. There is no funding available. Now funding irrespective of whether you have a debt exposure or not. So that is why we are with the government of a long-term loan availability, some kind of a government guarantee behind such loans, which will enable these banks to lend money. Of course, the RBI's recent announcement is one of the first significant markers of recognition by the government of the serious stress that is there over here. In that also, we are requesting the government for a 100% guarantee on that and a longer tenure. So therefore, while the grievances against banks is that of non-implementation of even the measures that have been announced, but largely the solution lies with the government. That's why we are here. But to say that banks should not lend us any further, I accept that logic. But to say that the banks will not follow the directions of RBI is something that we are actually agitating about.
Ajay, where is the light at the end of the tunnel for the hospitality sector? What we saw from, I think, November 2020 onwards, I would say, was quite heartening, where there was revenge travel. At least some segments of, the hospitality sector was showing resurgence. And then, of course, the second wave hit. Do you think that there is light at the end of the tunnel if we have a significant number of people vaccinated in the next 5 to 6 months?
I totally agree, Tamanna. I think the fortunes of hospitality are largely linked with the fortunes of how the lockdowns behave, how the virus behaves, and the vaccination schedule. But as we saw last year, between November to March, travel started to pick up. Hospitality was also picking up as a sector. And then the second wave hit. If we start looking at markets where, people have been significantly vaccinated, markets like EU and Europe and USA, people have started traveling a lot again. And this is what I expect to see again as well when free movement in India will kind of get back again. It's a cyclical thing, and there's a lot of pent-up demand, at least in the middle class and the HNI segment. And I totally believe that occupancy for flights and hotels and restaurants will go up as soon as people are able to go out and enjoy a meal or enjoy a vacation again.
So, Mythili, just a point to you, keeping that in mind, that, we did see a resurgence after the wane of the first wave last time around. The whole economy is geared up towards vaccinations, eventually turning the corner, and this whole situation eventually ending. Don't you think there is a case to extend more support to the hospitality sector, which is also a large employer? Can more be done instead of these advisories and suggestions to banks? Do you think they're being incentivized enough to go out and lend?
Tamanna, you used the word eventually. So as and when we do have vaccination on a much, much larger scale than we do have at present, and we have herd immunity, you're not going to see leisure travel return in any big way. And also let us remember that, as far as business travel is concerned, you're not going to get to the pre-COVID level because now many companies, corporates, employers and employees have realized that you can have a hybrid model. You really do not need to travel so crazily and so madly as before. So you are going to see, I think, a fall in business travel. You're not going to get to the pre-COVID level, and leisure travel will take a long time. So the key is, how soon are we able to vaccinate? Do we have a third wave or do we not have a third wave? So as of now, I do not really blame the banks entirely for being very shy of lending, because let's not forget, that ultimately these loans turn NPA, they will be the ones who are hauled over the coals.
Absolutely. It's going to be a tough time for the sector, but definitely they cannot be left by the wayside just hoping to weather 18, 19, perhaps 20 months of pretty much no business. It will be a hit that will take ages to recover from.